Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today we have returning guests Hoon and Utsav Chakrabarti, and we're going to be talking about a new project that they have initiated. Very interesting topic, and I would like for all of you to please like this video and also to subscribe our channel if you have not already done so. So let's welcome our guests Hoon Kim and Utsav Chakrabarti. Hoon, Utsav, how are you? Namaskar. Welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar. Thank you for having us.
Namaste, Sri, and happy, welcome to all our viewers. We are back again. Happy to be here.
And tomorrow is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And our children are grown up. Some of us have grown up children. Some are growing up. Some are would-be fathers. But whatever it is, happy Father's Day to all of you. Hoon, I'm going to start with you. Project Kailash. Wonderful name. What exactly does it mean?
So I think I think it makes more sense if I give a bit of a background as to how this all came about. So back a few months ago, a group of Tibetan Buddhists and our Hindu community members, and including Utsav and Sikhs and Jains, and even others who are sort of remotely even connected to the greater 𝗤𝙗𝘗 community, have gotten together and said, it seems like the time has come for all of us to be working together a lot more. Not just on a religious basis, because that's going to happen anyways, right? You would see, you see members of the Hindu community going to the Tibetan Buddhist community, and members of the Tibetan Buddhist community going to Gurdwara and ashrams and whatnot. That happens, but they said, on top of doing that, why don't we do something as a community to promote who we are, our heritage, our culture, but also to preserve and to protect our heritage, our culture, and everything that that has been, a part of us since the way beginning. And so a group of Tibetan Buddhist community members, particularly from those from Ladakh, or those who represent the folks from Ladakh, have gotten together and said, why let's see what we can do. And when we gotten together, we realized that there are several issues that really impact the communities on a daily basis, especially here in the U.S. and abroad. And those things were that the future generation or the incoming generation are having a hard time connecting with the heritage of their parents, or even if they're not really fully aware of it, or even if they are fully aware of it, they don't really see any incentive to connect, right? And so they said, look, let's find ways to help each other, to combat against all the challenges. But the greater challenges were this, is that on the two fronts, the greater challenges of the Chinese Communist Party really trying to redefine Buddhism these days, because that's happening all over Southeast Asia, which have started in Tibet, and now with the ongoing tensions going within the Indo-Tibet border. A lot of the Himalayan Buddhist residents are thinking, well, what's going to happen? We really have to think about our future and such. And so there are a group of problems that are really dynamic in nature, really diverse in nature. And so when we first had a meeting with HinduACTion, and the Hindu community really, and then the Buddhist community, and so on and so forth, we decided, well, let's come up with a name that sort of unites us all. Now, at the get-go, it's really hard to come up with something like that, because every religion has a great figure that defines the religion, or is the face of the religion. Buddhism has Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha. Hinduism has a number of gods that are worshipped in different societies as well, and Sikhs and Jains and so on and so forth. But we found out that there is this one mountain that all these 𝗤𝗏𝘗 communities hold very, very dear to, which is the mountain of Kailash that exists inside Tibet. and it is held dear. It is held dear by the Hindus because many Hindus believe that their god Shiva lives there. For Tibetan Buddhists and really for Buddhists all over the world, um, Kailash has always been a very sacred mountain, a place of prayer, meditation, and whatnot. And for Sikhs and Jains, the same thing, so on and so forth. So we decided, well, look, a mountain is a great gathering place since the ancient times, and so let's call ourselves the Kailash Coalition. And so the coalition was also essentially formed to a couple of things. Number one, yes, to promote who we are and who the Dharma community is in general, but also at the same time to support. So for the first time within the United States and really in the West, outside of the regular Dharmic communities such as India, where we have an ecosystem of support for each other. So when a Hindu temple is attacked in California, for the first time, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, and the Jains no longer consider it a Hindu issue only. It's their issue because, in a way, this whole Dharmic community, this Dharmic connection invokes that unity between among these communities as well. And so, even with the Tibetan issue, when a monastery is destroyed inside Tibet, it becomes a point of concern for so many other Dharmic communities in general. And so, for the first time, this coalition has been. To me, it seems like more of a seed for a greater movement inside the United States, and we're very excited for it to go. I mean, we're actually looking at doing a Buddhist type of event in Congress, and so I think Utsav can talk a little bit more about that. But we're very excited to get this going, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, Sehun. And viewers, to my right here, I have a map of Bharat from 1931, printed in Joshi Press in Mumbai, and it refers to what we call TIBET as Tibet, the first Thai soft. That's how in India used to refer to Tibet. I don't know the right way to pronounce it, but I'm going to go with that because this is at least 100 years old. Utsav, talk to us a little bit about this initiative that you're going to try and pass in the Congress. But more importantly, Kailash is something that all of us would like to go at least once in our lifetime. I know friends of mine who have done it multiple times, and truly they come back with a glow. There is something that a visit to Kailash does to you. Talk to us a little bit about how the significance of Kailash is for Buddhists, and more importantly, Sehun, I'm going to come back to you with a question. Essentially, I'd like you to tell our viewers how the CCP is trying to change the Buddhist culture itself. I know of Hinayana, Mahayana, and I think a variation called Shinto in Japan. But kind of explain to us a little bit about how this is being brought about. Utsav, over to you.
So first of all, Sree, thanks for bringing up this topic today, because this is a very strategic issue, as you can see from Sehun's description. And the core of this lies in the fact that in the West, there has been a missed opportunity for our communities. We are now a community that is 9 million in numbers and more. And we never had really created this formal strategic alliance that operates at the grassroots in our societies, especially in America. So that's where the ideas came from, and myself and Sehun have been working behind the scenes for a couple of months now on this. Another thing that your question about Kailash. Kailash is something that is core to the Hindu belief, and it is core to the Buddhist beliefs, especially the Vajrayana Tibetan traditions, because it is in Tibet. And as you said, Sree, those of our community members who travel to Kailash, they do come back with it's of tremendous spiritual significance to the community. And the fact that it's part of our historic Puranic literature, despite being almost inaccessible by, if you imagine not having any planes, not having any cars, and people from parts of the world, completely tropical in nature, walking for months to get get to Kailash. That's how important it is spiritually to us. And of course, the abode of Lord Shiva being of such paramount importance to the entire Hindu community. So yes, strategically it's critical. The Kailash coalition is critical to the communities. Spiritually, it's critical to the dharmic communities in general across the world. So that's the reason why we picked that name. More importantly, the fact that it is not part of the dharmic domain anymore and is completely under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is something that should always be reminded to ourselves. And even though we do get to go to pilgrimage to Kailash, it is something that should be much more embraced and much more closer to our dharmic communities around the world. And that's also another thing that is playing in our minds. So it is important that the Western world understands the importance of it, given at a time where people in America, policymakers, thought leaders, are so focused on the Indo-Pacific, on CCP in different ways, and they have a good understanding of the economic, the strategic, the military aspects of things, doctrinal aspects of all these issues. But I have found, and I'm sure Sehun would agree with me, that they have a very poor understanding of the civilizational aspect of our communities in our parts of the world. And it is important not only for them to understand it, but to understand it and embrace it, because we do not want America or any other powerful country around the world make mistakes that harm us civilizationally, knowingly or unknowingly. So it is also important that we approach it for educational, for giving a better civilizational education to our communities in America. And so that's the background of this whole Kailash project. And as Sehun pointed out, we have had very good response from our communities so far. And the door is open for us to achieve whatever we can achieve with it. And elections are coming in America, so this is a good time to educate people on it.
Wonderful. Sehun, before I ask you the question, I just want to tell our viewers, in Sanatana Dharma, we have this concept of whenever Dharma is in danger, Mahavishnu comes as an avatar. And in some variations, it is Balarama, but in other variations, it is Buddha. So you have Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, and so on, Narasimha, and then you come to Rama and then Krishna. After that, in some they will say Buddha, and in others they say Balarama. Balarama is the brother of Krishna. So the Buddhism and Hinduism are intertwined from our thought for thousands of years. It's not something that you can separate. And in fact, there are lots of stories about how India was turning Buddhist, and there was a fear that they would not want to take up arms. In fact, this is one of the reasons cited why India was so unprepared for the conquest by starting from Alexander. They did stop them, but it had shown some vulnerabilities. That's how the 6th century, 7th century conquest started, and so on and so forth. So Sehun, back to you, the question. How is the CCP trying to change the Buddhism? First of all, they don't accept religion, last I thought, but clearly there is, these guys will stop at nothing. In fact, they have actually murdered the Mandarin language. They have made it, oversimplified it. So if you want pure Mandarin, you need to go out of China. It is that ridiculous. I don't know what they think anyway. So over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. One thing that the viewers need to understand is that for the Chinese Communist Party, it's all about conquest. It's all about taking things over, right? That's the reason why they kidnapped the reincarnated, the new Panchen Lama, who we don't know where his whereabouts for over 30 years now. The Chinese keep insisting that he is a normal Chinese citizen living a normal Chinese citizen life in China. And so, it's very possible that in the future, after the passing away of the Dalai Lama himself, what's probably going to happen is they're going to decide their own Dalai Lama, even though that Dalai Lama is not going to be accepted by anybody, period. But they've done that to Tibet, and I believe that they're going to do that in a place like Tibet as a show of power. That, look, we have even taken over Tibetan Buddhism. No matter what you say, we have the land that where the Tibetan Buddhism originated, even though Buddhism actually originated in India. But also, it's ours, and we get to define it. So that's their ultimate goal. The other things that they're doing within Southeast Asia, in places like Sri Lanka and so on and so forth, is that they are essentially throwing money to embrace these monasteries and the politics of those surrounding nations. And as you know, countries like Myanmar, Thailand, Sri Lanka, if you want to be a politician there, you have to have a very, very good relationship with the Buddhist leadership, with the gurus over there, and it has been like that for a very long time. And the Chinese understand this, and the Chinese understand that, at the end of the day, we live in a modern society. Even monasteries are going to have needs and whatnot. And so what they do is they pressure the countries in two fronts. They pressure the countries economically, telling them, well, there's going to be a shortage of your products being sold in China if you don't do X, Y, and Z, or that they will go into a monastery, build these relationships with the abbots and everyone from the high abbots all the way down to a regular monk doing his regular chores inside a monastery, and basically trying to influence them to do the bidding that they want. So one of those biddings is to support the politicians that are propped up by the CCP, and this has been happening all over in Southeast Asia. And they understand that once they take over the Buddhist narrative within these regions, they essentially control Southeast Asia. And you might be asking, okay, well, how does a country that doesn't even recognize a single religion as a valid entity, even though they claim that, well, all people in China enjoy religious freedom? That's really not true. What they're essentially doing is that they're building a model where religious bodies essentially look up to the government, right? So in Tibetan societies, for example, monasteries have to write or have to pledge their loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, they're doing the same thing to the Uyghurs, right? Instead of saying the words, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, they're forced to recognize the Chinese Communist Party as the ultimate entity, right, that decides their fate. And this is and again, even if that's going on, countries like Pakistan, countries all over, Muslim countries all over the world stay silent on that. Well, because the Chinese have essentially succeeded in this campaign to essentially control the narrative of those nations. And so we're probably going to slowly see that occurring a lot more in Southeast Asia. But also at the same time, you need to understand that this is extremely beneficial to one body, which is the body of the radical Islamists that's been working against the 𝗤𝘗𝘗 communities over there. You see, when this model succeeds, and depending on the politics of India, a lot of people, a lot of these radicals will see that this can also be done to other 𝗤𝘗𝘗 communities as well, right? And so and imagine a future where ashrams, right, and other temples, right, become a lot more connected to China because of, and again, this is where the presence of Kailash mountain can be weaponized and be twisted against the 𝗤𝘗𝘗 communities, is that the Chinese will say, well, look, we actually have the mountain that you hold sacred. Let us build a bridge together, right? But at the same time, since we're friends, why don't you support our dear friend X, Y, and Z who are in government, who are running for Lok Sabha, right? And put it there. And so it sounds crazy, but remember, in places like Sri Lanka, in Thailand, and in places like Myanmar, to a certain extent, this is being done right now. And so that's why it's extremely dangerous. But I will also end with this: is that to my knowledge, Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party overall have been seeing the success of the Buddhist diplomacy that was done by Prime Minister Modi in his first term. And I think they were very much taken back, actually, by the success of it. I mean, the fact that Prime Minister Modi went there along with the other Indian delegation and were embraced so welcomingly by the Buddhist communities all over Southeast Asia and even to Mongolia, that really became a point of threat, because you can always separate people who are aligned politically and societally and whatnot, but when they're connected spiritually or theologically, that's something that's a bond that you really will have a hard time breaking, right? And I think that's a point of a huge contention by the CCP, and I think that's the reason why they're being so aggressive in Sri Lanka. I mean, just one last example: the top Buddhist leadership within Sri Lanka actually went to Dharamsala a few months ago to meet the Dalai Lama, but he said, it's so unfortunate that the Dalai Lama can't visit us in Colombo and give us teachings, and that's all we're asking for. And I think this is what's probably going to be on the table for other Dharmic communities if we let this happen. And so even I think the best thing to do is to at least start combating this in our home front, not for really political reasons, but to actually strengthen the communities together and their allies together, in order to make our place in the world, and hopefully this will serve as a point of inspiration for everywhere else, including in people within India and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Sehun. And Utsav, I have a question for you. The extent of Buddhism, you have in Sri Lanka, you have Myanmar, you have Thailand, you have Cambodia, I think a little bit Hindu, a little bit Buddhist, but it doesn't stop there. Sehun knows about Buddhism, so it has grown in Korea. I'm curious about North Korea. I don't have any idea about that. But even in Japan worships Hindu idols. 𝗤𝙜𝙤𝙬 is Saraswati, and many others. I mean, we have to go to the cultural capital of Japan, which is Kyoto, which is where you go find all these things. Overall, having this umbrella where we all recognize that our roots are the same, how significant can this be in terms of uniting people so that their voice counts?
It is significant, because, as you know, despite their efforts to project divisive narratives on Hindu and Buddhist and multiple dharmic faith issues, and of course, when you are half the world's population for more than 2,000 years, I'm sure there are things that have discord. If 5 people in a room cannot agree on things, so when you are half the world's population for more than 2 millennia, you can find historical places where there have been discord. But one thing that is understood and accepted, and we all, Hindus and Buddhists globally, should recognize, is that the most powerful Hindu empires in the history were patronizers of Buddhist monasteries and monks. The Gupta Empire, which our Islamists and leftists would call a Brahminical empire, as they say, portray in history books, was one of the biggest contributors to the building of the Nalanda University in Bihar. And similarly, if you look at the Pala Empire, if you look at Thai kingdoms, if you look at Cambodia, even when the Buddhists came in significant strength throughout history, they continued to have Hindu deities as principal deities in their kingdoms. The Pala Empire in Eastern India that spanned all the way to Afghanistan was the biggest builders of Hindu deities and worshippers of Hindu deities. So, this historical narrative that often many people try to create of discord is not really that significant. And I must say that, historically and in terms of doctrines, the Hindu philosophical schools rightfully debated each other as much as they debated the Buddhist schools, as much as the Buddhists debated amongst themselves. The Vajrayanas and the Theravadas had a tremendous amount of debate and discord, as much as the Vedanta groups had with the Shunyavad or Vajrayana schools. So it was a healthy discord that created the highly sophisticated philosophical treatises historically, and that empower us even today with knowledge. So there is a common thread that unites our dharmic communities. And the way I look at it, the way Sehun looks at it, is that in modern times, with significant population, like if you add the Buddhists and the Hindus together globally, we are almost the world's second largest religious community. And that means a lot. There are 24 countries then that come together. And in America, we are close to 10 million. That is not something we should ignore. That is something that should tie us back together again and become a spiritual and a geopolitical force.
Thank you so much, Utsav. There's more in common, and that commonness needs to be rediscovered. Unfortunately, we're all kind of went off and did our own stuff, if you will. I know there is a underneath subterranean movement in China also. It has different names, but essentially Buddhist and culture. I don't want to, name anything because these guys are nutcases, and we don't know what they'll think of next. For example, we have seen now, as a rule, once I get Elmer even on my channel, it doesn't matter which part of the world he's in. These people find a way to somehow, disrupt that. The voice will crack. This will happen. Now I've gotten, okay, fine. You have infiltrated, so we will figure this out. So that's how these people are. But overall, in terms of what is happening inside China, 1 minute from both of you, how do you see China in 2024? September 2023, Xi Jinping came asking for money. They say 800 billion is what he wanted from US. US refused. He had a dinner, $5,000 a plate, or 40,000 a dinner, a table or something like that dinner, where a lot of the industry big shots attended. Not $1 was invested in China. How do things stand? 1 minute from both of you today in China.
Okay, so see, I see that China today has a tremendous amount of leverage over the American society, especially on American politicians. It has invested tremendous amount in American political discourse, and as much as I would want to believe that we are taking all the steps possible to contain China geopolitically and in any other way, I think there's a long way we need to go in America to politically and geopolitically deal with the CCP. That's number one. I think China's economy is on a high risk zone, but it is also an economy that has not performed as badly as we would have wanted it to, or we would have expected, given the risks it took. So, I don't want to say this in 2024 that China is on a brink. I believe that China has a long way to go before it had crashes, or it overheats, or has issues that can destroy it. At the same time, it is important to understand that it's not the Chinese people that are our adversaries, or that we have to be concerned about. It's the CCP and its global outlook that we need to be concerned about, and that the Chinese people need to be concerned about.
Sehun.
Well, just to top off what Utsav said, yes, the economy's on a very, very high risk arena. However, they're very, very known for having a hostage diplomacy, and being really, really good at blackmailing whoever they can. Look how they have captured countries like Pakistan. Look how they have captured all these radical Islam driven nations and entities out there. They don't say a peep about what's happening to the Uyghurs, and so it's a very powerful tool that they have, and that's probably the tool that they will utilize in the future. And this is extremely dangerous because both the United States, India, South Korea, I mean, you name it, Japan, and so on and so forth, we're all surrounded by nations that could become particularly hostile and cause a great damage to the world. China has them on the grip, and that's probably the reason why, at least on the home front, we need to be a lot more united than before. And this dharmic community, in a way, can serve as an inspiration, for everybody. And at the same token, I'd also like to emphasize that for China, this is something that they fear tremendously, because if a grassroots effort to unite in terms of the commonalities that are shared through spirituality, history, and so on and so forth, can thrive and succeed, it's something that they would view as the end of their rule in China, because they have been fighting against it, and that's where they have been driving their success with it. And shame on us in the United States. We were the ones that actually caused all that by getting them to enter into the WTO in the beginning of 2000s, and now we have really built this monster that we know as the CCP today. So I would say that although China is not looking all that great economically, it is a sort of like this monster that's beginning to feel a little cornered by the righteous entities out there. And when anybody's cornered, as your viewers may know exactly, you don't know what they will do. And so we have to embrace ourselves and also keep addressing the issues that are caused by the CCP, and also at the same time recognize the fact that a problem is a problem. I mean, their use of radical Islam to attack entities all over the world, particularly in India and even here in the United States, is a huge point of concern. It's one of their many tentacles of attacks. And I think, and we also need to recognize that one of their tactics and one of their goals is to essentially annihilate the dharmic communities here within the United States and all over the world, to ensure that either we submit to them, right, completely, or we go off and enjoy the netherworld. So I would love for our viewers to really understand that, and really just thank you all again for giving us this time to present this issue.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. All the best to you for Project Kailash. And viewers, we will be following it very closely. So do tune back in when we bring back Sehun Kim and Utsav Chakrabarti on our panel. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Thank you so much, Utsav. Thank you so much, Sehun, for making this possible. Namaskar. Namaste.